Hello again, and welcome back to the 406-411 with Bethany and Michael. I'm Bethany.
And I'm Michael.
And today we are here with another Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Great. We're so happy you can be here.
Yeah,
On
excited
this
to be here.
very cold and snowy night. But
No kidding. We all made it in, so that's
We
an
did.
achievement.
I barely made it into the parking lot.
Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it?
I got stuck.
We had to push her out with
Yeah.
the help of many, many Conradites.
Yes. It was pretty spectacular. It was just poor Michael and Lynn pushing my car, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was like some kind of action movie. These two cars roll in on either side of me, and like 8 people jump out.
Oh, yeah,
and
it was wild.
just shoved me right into the parking lot. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, go you.
Yeah.
And I saw where you were in the one patch of no snow, and I'm like, oh, they plowed it. So I just parked right behind you. So I had no problems.
That works. So, Michael, you are here today to talk to us about organic farming in the area.
That's
correct?
right.
Yes, and you yourself are an organic farmer out of
I
Conrad.
am an organic farmer out of Conrad.
And I am looking forward to it because I haven't the foggiest clue on any of it. So,
You're in for a treat.
outstanding. I look forward to it.
But we do like to eat, so.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the thing about farming is we make food, so.
And I am all about that.
That's a good thing. So, how many years have you been here?
So this is our 6th year now.
Oh, wow.
So I started farming. I grew up on a farm down in northern Utah. And do you want me to go into my whole story of how I ended up here?
Sure.
Okay. So I started farming. So I grew up on a farm in northern Utah. And it was a place my grandpa ran. And my dad, he didn't want anything really to do with farming. So he ended up getting another job, moving away, but I have 4 brothers, and so he wanted us to be involved in farming, kind of the character building, picking rocks, pulling weeds, all that kind of stuff. So we moved back to his hometown, just so all my brothers could go out and work on the farm. So we did that, and then like a year later, my grandpa ended up passing away, and so my dad was trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do with the farm? He never really saw himself as a farmer, but he ended up buying the farm from his brothers and sisters. And so then every summer I just ended working on the farm, building fence, just doing odd jobs.
What kind of things did you raise on the farm in Utah?
It was winter wheat. We did a little bit of safflower, but pretty much winter wheat.
Winter wheat. And was that an organic farm or a conventional farm?
It was organic, yeah. There was a little group down there of people who, there's a mill called Central Milling, and in that area it's really low fertility soil. And so they came around to everybody and kind of said, hey, well, you're not fertilizing much anyway. What if we offered you 25 cents more so we can call it natural? That was before anything was really certified organic. And then the story was, we're going to take this and we're going to go sell it to the hippie colonies down in California and make a little extra money. And just all the farms kind of in this little area decided, hey, that's a pretty good deal for us. So now we'd call it transition to organic, but they just kind of quit using any kind of synthetic additives and got this little premium.
Oh, wow. So you knew what you were doing when you came to your farm up here. And
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
well, there's I read a book at your suggestion called Lentil Underground, and it does seem like there's a pretty good size organic farming community up in this area.
Yeah. So actually, and in terms of acres, Montana's actually, for wheat acres, it's number 1 in the nation.
Really?
For, largest number of organic wheat acres. For overall acreage, I want to say we're like number 3 or something like that.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. It doesn't really seem like it just driving around, but there's a lot of us crazy organic farmers around here.
So what kind of crops do you grow around?
So we grow, every time somebody asks me that, I always just say all the weird stuff. So I'll tell you all the things we grow, and then usually they're like, well, what's this? And what's this?
Oh, okay.
But so I guess to go back, so we were farming just winter wheat down in Utah, and we came up and we got in contact. So kind of the story of how we came up here was we were leasing out this family place in Utah. We had a 5-year lease, and then we had to figure out what we were gonna do, and so it's kind of funny. I met my wife going to school, and I was getting an engineering degree. And I'd worked a couple internships. My last internship that summer, I worked at a toilet paper manufacturing company, and I just hated it. So I had this fear of like, I've got to figure something out.
Wait, pause. You were an engineer at a toilet paper company?
Yeah, I was going to say, how is that engineer worthy?
Is there a lot of engineering that goes into
There is, yeah. I learned everything there is about toilet paper.
Oh.
Were you at Georgia Pacific or another big?
No, I was at Procter and Gamble.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I worked in food manufacturing next door to a Georgia Pacific mill. So
Okay.
your story rings somewhat familiar.
Oh, because it's when you're doing millions and millions of rolls of toilet paper, it's like they have to have everything down to a science.
So,
Oh, boy.
no, I was watching TV the other day, and Procter and Gamble, you said?
Yeah,
Do they
yep.
do Charmin?
They do, yeah.
So Charmin has now a wavy tear, so when you tear it off, it's not like the straight line across, it's
That's
wavy.
great.
Is there some engineer that figured out
That would have been someone like me.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was just eats, sleeps, and breathes toilet paper.
Wow, that's awesome.
That sounded really weird. I'm not going to lie.
That was me. That's where my life was headed before this. So, but I just had this fear of like, this is where I'm going back to if this doesn't work out. So anyway,
You could invent wavy toilet paper.
I could have done that
Yeah.
and had they actually invited us out to Cincinnati, and we got to go up and see all like the CEOs up there and the VPs, and they all had Lamborghinis and they were on their fourth marriage. And I was just like, oh my gosh, guys, it was kind of trying to tempt you into look at this life you could have if you stick with it for 30 years. And I was just like, not for me.
Not for you.
So anyway, we're looking all over, and a couple of people said, hey, why don't you go to this Montana Organic Association meeting? And it was in Great Falls that year. And we went up, and sure enough, we had a bunch of great contacts. There were like 3 farms we looked at, and one of the ladies that's actually in the book you mentioned, Nancy Matheson, was there and stood up and said, hey, we're selling our family farm. And it was just what we were looking for. So we came up, looked at it, and got all the loans figured out just at this conference. And yeah, we moved up. Didn't really have any previous contacts in Montana, but we've loved it up here so far.
Well, that's great. That's what you call kismet, right? Or serendipity?
Yeah,
Serendipity. Yeah. So you've been farming up here for 6 years now, huh?
6 years. I never
Okay.
told you what we grew either.
Yeah, I was going to say.
still
tell
waiting
us what
on
we
that.
I never answered the question.
What is the staple crop? Like your big one?
That's the thing, and I think this is pretty common on most of the organic farms is you got to have the rotation.
Right.
You can't have the one really without the other. But we do, so I guess you could say cereal grains and pulses. So cereal grains, and then within those categories, we tried to specialize even more. I actually had one really experienced organic farmer tell me, I said, hey, what's the secret to being successful in organic farming? And because there's a lot of crops that are kind of more high risk, high reward type things, such as lentils. And he said, you can grow these risky crops, but you got to have a diversity of them. So if you have a problem with your marketing or growing a crop on a certain year, you have all these other options available that are going to work out. So anyway, so for the cereal grains, we do grow some. Actually, didn't grow any wheat,
No.
but we did grow some, I guess, durum wheat, so pasta wheat, spelt, which is an ancient grain. We've grown emmer, which is another spring-planted ancient grain, and you might have heard of kamut, which is a Montana brand, or we grow the Coruscant.
I have heard of kamut.
There you go.
I didn't know what it was, but I have heard it.
Oh yeah, that could be a whole nother podcast.
Well, you have to come back on and talk about kamut.
Yeah, so we do that. We grow a bunch of different varieties of lentils, a little bit of mustard, and I mean we've done chickpeas a little bit, but mostly lentils is our big pulse, and then cereal grains.
So what's your favorite?
They're different. I guess growing up, here's the thing about wheat or as any of the grains, they're very forgiving, and that is nice because if you mess it up a little bit, everything still looks great.
Yeah.
I really like, I'm going to say spelt, which if you came from a farming background, you might raise an eyebrow on that. So spelt's one of these ancient varieties. It's susceptible to every kind of disease there is. It's not bred to be a great crop, but the thing I love about it is it just grows and fills in. There's never any weed pressure. It grows to, I mean, it's like 5 feet tall. It's just
really?
fun to cut and fun to see growing because it's so thick.
Yeah. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Spelt.
Yeah, I know when I worked at a bread place, there was always a spelt bread, and they packaged it in this like lime green packaging. It just, between the name of it and the and the marketing behind it, it just looked disgusting. It just looked vile.
Oh, it's great. I had some spelt pancakes this morning, and it was perfect.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So where do you sell your, where's your market?
So we all over. So kind of the thing that I figured out, and I feel like the thing that's made us successful in farming has been the marketing aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I really like about organic farming, I kind of figured this out as I was thinking about becoming a farmer full time, and I talked to people, and a lot of people would tell me, you know, farming's great, it's fun and all, which it is, but you know, you just can't make a living farming anymore. And I kind of realized that the issue with our conventional food system is that, and I kind of figured, I had this epiphany when I was fixing fence out on the farm down there, and I was listening to, this will tell you how much of a nerd I am. I was trying to figure out this whole like money thing, how I was going to make money farming. So I was reading all these books. I was listening to them on audiobook as I was fixing fence. And for some reason, probably because it was free and available for download at my local library, I ended up listening to The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. It's like from the 1800s, talking about how countries make money.
Yeah, but the whole idea of supply and demand, all that fun stuff. Oh, yeah.
So I was realizing...
History nerds.
Yeah, it's from the 1600s. Come on now.
I have noticed that. Now I'm getting into like World War II books and stuff like that.
Well, you are getting to middle age, so that tracks. So
I was listening to this. I was like, learn about supply and demand and stuff. And I kind of realized, okay, so he's talking about, you know, the supply of any product, like, say, wheat or a commodity. And the more there is of it, then the less it's worth because the price goes down because there's so much, it's in abundance, and vice versa. And he talked about how things change, their price change based on supply, based on something called how elastic the product is. And the thing that's the most elastic of anything else would be a farm commodity because there's no branding. It's just wheat. You can grow it in Russia, Ukraine, or in Montana, lump it all together and sell it to whoever will give you whatever price they're going to give you. So what I realized was, and he also mentioned, the more elastic something is, the closer to the cost of production the price is going to be. And that's what I saw in farming. I saw the farms around me, and it was like, well, they're growing food. They're able to sell it for about what it costs to grow it. And the only money they're really making is off government subsidies to be able to stay in business. And that just didn't work for me as a kid trying to buy a farm. I didn't inherit anything.
Right.
I got to figure out how to make this work as a business.
Right.
So the thing I realized with organic marketing is, as opposed to just going to an elevator and there's a price that's going to change based on if there's a rain in France or if Brazil takes more of our market share, it allowed me to go out to mills that may be looking for something specific and say, hey, here's something I can grow specifically. Maybe they need spelt. Maybe they need a certain quality, a certain protein that's hard for other people to grow. And I can write a contract with that mill and say, hey, I will grow this for you. It might be a small amount. And they're willing to pay me a premium in order to do that. So you're kind of
like you're kind of like an independent contractor for different mills.
Yeah. We probably have 10 different mills that we grow for.
Are they all like right in this area, or do you have to ship off to various places?
Some of them are here local. So we grow for Montana Milling here, General Mills. They do organic. We grow for still a mill down in Utah, one up in Vancouver, one down in Denver. So just kind of all over.
So do you ship your grain to these mills that are farther away, or do they come pick it up, or how does that work?
Yeah, it just depends on the contract, but just what I'll do is I just kind of know I have a trucking company that I use, and I can figure out the shipping to XYZ place, and then just make sure that there's enough cushion there for me to get it there and still make what I need. And I think that's the other thing about organic too, is they're more of the time, especially on these specialty crops, it's lower yielding, but it's higher dollar crops, which means if I have a semi-load of just regular old conventional wheat, and maybe it's only worth $6 a bushel or something, I mean, if I ship that down to Denver, say, that's $3 a bushel just to get it there.
Right.
So it doesn't really work, but if I have something that's $20, $30 a bushel, well, I can probably pay $3 a bushel and still get it to Denver. And it kind of expands the reach of how far I can ship things.
Right. Well, that's cool. What are your yields compared to like conventional farming?
So we are definitely, well, and the more specialty we grow, the lower they get.
Yeah.
But the difference is, though, I guess, and I think a lot of farmers are realizing this, there's kind of this movement now for organic and regenerative farming practices, and we can get into that a little bit more, but the idea being of the universities, everyone in the farming community has always been looking at, well, yield. How can I get the highest yield?
Right.
But you have to have this mind shift of, okay, this is a business. I need to look at dollars. How many dollars am I growing per acre? So I guess the thing about organic is you might drive past and be like, oh, that looks a little thinner than the field next to it. But maybe dollars-wise, it could be a lot more.
Right. Just depending on what the crop is.
Yeah. So I would say, if I was to just grow regular old wheat, I'm probably getting about 70% the yield of a conventional farmer. I would say around here, a good winter wheat yield might be 55 or 60 bushel. Mm-hmm. And we're probably getting, 30 or something like that. So.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I picked up on that book is it was a lot about having this like paradigm shift in your mind about growing food and how to grow food and what kinds of food and that sort of thing. That seemed like a big theme.
Well, and I think also, it's good also for the consumer because I feel like, especially being up here in Montana, this is the first time we've actually just lived on the farm. So it's kind of fun. And we're not very good at the whole like homesteading thing. We're getting it a little bit, but just gardening and having some chickens and stuff. And it makes you realize, so when I go out to buy seed, say I want to grow wheat, and I go, there's like these field days. You could take the podcast there to a farmer field day and look at all the different varieties of wheat. They have cool names. Anyway, there's different, but the thing is...
road trip.
Yeah, another road trip. Mark it on the calendar. We need a calendar.
We do.
Yeah.
There's an experiment station right here north of Conrad that does stuff. But anyway, so when you go to these things, it kind of brings into perspective that the things that are bred into wheat are not the things necessarily that consumers want to buy. So like if you guys ate a fancy meal, you're probably thinking, how are you going to judge that meal? Probably by how good does it taste?
Right.
Maybe how healthy is it or something like that.
Well, I'm a bit of a food nerd. I've spent a lot of time before I moved up in my present career in Montana. I spent a lot of time in kitchens and some big food manufacturing, but also just now my own kitchen. And the level of food nerd that I am a member of the Rancho Gordo Bean Club. So yeah, definitely by how it tastes, how it cooks, how it feels. In addition to how it tastes, things like texture and, time it takes to cook, that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And you probably don't think that much of like, well, what was the yield on this lentil, or what was the yield?
Yeah, I can't really say, but Lynn actually has a story surrounding the lentils.
So last week, as it turns out, I was craving. There's a particular salmon and lentils that I was absolutely craving it.
Yeah.
And I did. I've read Lentil Underground. I know the area. So I'm thinking, I'm just going to go down to the store and get some lentils. There was not a lentil to be found in our local supermarket in Conrad, Montana, I'm sorry to say.
Oh.
And it changed up my entire dinner plans. I'm still salty about it. But yeah, no, I definitely didn't think it was going to be a big to-do.
Yeah.
To find one of our local crops here for purchase as a home chef.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, go to that Timeless Seeds website. You can order some lentils. But I actually thought that too. Isn't it interesting? Like during COVID, especially, where I was going to the grocery store, there was no flour on the shelf, and as I drove out of town, I look over at the local elevator. They have like 1 million bushels stacked right there of
Really?
wheat. So that's enough flour to feed 100,000 people for a year, and yet there's no flour in the store.
Wow.
Whoa. That's wild.
Isn't that weird? And that's just how the food system is. It's all the wheat here usually goes to the coast and gets exported.
Yeah, I've thought about getting my own like little tabletop flour mill. I don't
Oh,
know
you
if they
gotta
make
do it.
tabletop flour mills.
They
but
do.
Yeah. I've thought about that because there's so much wheat out here. And
Yeah.
it's like it'd be really nice to just, cut out the middleman.
Yeah. And here's the thing about wheat, too. So this is, Lynn, we're getting into food stuff, but so that wheat is like the perfect, I mean, you can go back into looking at the history. What's that book? I'm sure Michael's read it. The Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Oh, I watched
Talks
that on
about
TV.
wheat. Yeah.
I watched that. I didn't read it. I watched it.
No, that's a great book.
Yeah.
That was real big, 10 years
About 10
ago?
years ago.
Something
Yeah.
like that?
They've had to walk back a few things in it in recent years, but yeah, it's a pretty good starting point for a lot of things.
And it
Actually,
talks
I
about
didn't
wheat.
watch. I didn't watch the whole thing. If I'm being honest, I think I watched Germs and Guns.
You didn't get to the steel part.
I don't think I saw the
The
steel
germs part. Yeah. But anyway, so wheat, I mean, it stores forever. You can store it for like 30 years in a bucket and then pull it out and grind it. And then it's just delicious, fresh, wonderful flavor.
Oh yeah, that's real. There's a bunch of archaeological digs that take place over in the former Roman Empire where they found containers with wheat from ancient Rome, from ancient Egypt, and they're actually using them to make loaves of bread exactly like ancient Romans would have made it.
Nice.
It's like I would love to try that.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that's an ancient grain called einkorn that they used to grow in Egypt. Yeah.
Well, I've seen where I used to live, the Natural Foods Co-op had einkorn for sale, and I'm not sure if that was
Okay.
just a branding or if it was.
No, it's a variety. Yeah.
Truly the variety.
It's one of the oldest grain varieties that we have.
I mean, I've had to learn. I've had to sort of reframe some of my thinking because I came up in the early 80s on the edge, on the trailing edge of like the Diet for a Small Planet and that sort of, cooking and food ways. And that doesn't leave you with a very favorable impression of beans. That's more the food as fuel
Yeah.
sort of thing. And yeah, really getting into that, into cooking your local, pulses and especially chickpeas.
Yeah.
To where it's something that you want to eat. You
Yeah.
truly want to eat. And I think I've gotten there. Michael is nodding his head. And definitely had to look more at other cultures who have, used these pulses for centuries and not tried to shoehorn them into some sort of health food movement.
Yeah, yep.
That's all good if that's what your palate likes, but I like a bit stronger flavors than that. But yeah.
Oh,
Really
man.
enjoyed.
There's some
cooking
stronger
them.
flavors with lentils. There's some delicious lentil meals out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you foresee in the future any like small farms making a comeback?
So that's an interesting question. And you can really see it driving around Montana too, just the change. I've noticed that too, just driving out to our farm. You see, I mean, there's probably 3 empty old homesteads for every one that's actually lived in now.
Right.
And that's just kind of how the food system went of, if these farmers, well, back in turn of the century, they moved up here and they could support a whole family on a small farm, and all these old country schools all had kids in them, and it was just, they were all supported off just one small farm. And then as supply went up, the prices went down, and the solution was get bigger. And that's kind of what we saw, as a lot of these farms got consolidated into one farm. And with modern chemicals and stuff, one guy can run a huge farm just by using chemicals. They can get over it really fast. And I think the issue is, and I mean, that's all well and good. And I think a lot of the farmers around here have done an amazing job of providing food for the world. But the issue is really that next generation, when they want to come back and maybe be a part of the farm, they either have to inherit something or work something out. It's hard for someone like me, who just wanted a farm and is young and excited and willing to try something new, to go into the conventional farming system and be successful just at the prices. So I think there is more, I mean, there's more people willing to try new things. But I don't think that opportunity is really available just with the conventional farming system as it is.
Right. And I've heard that too, that, if you don't inherit a farm, you can't really be a farmer, even if you're interested in doing it. There's not a way to actually run your own farm. I mean, you can be hired by someone else, but you can't really take the reins yourself and do it the way you'd like to.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, and I think part of it too is with, the advent of different machinery and chemicals, it's like, well, the farmers are trading labor for capital for cash. So if you have enough money to buy $100,000 sprayer and you can get a loan for all the inputs that you need, it really doesn't work out. That's what you'd have to do to be able to farm conventionally. And that was, I mean, I have nothing against conventional farming. It's just like I have to play a game that there's some chance of winning.
Right. Right.
And it doesn't have to be organic, but I think for there to be more small farms, people have to do something different, and they have to do some kind of specialty.
Right. Like the conventional farming is all well and good if you have hundreds of thousands of acres, but if you just have a smaller farm, it's not really viable to do it that way.
I was reading recently about kind of the landscape with books and booksellers, and we all know about Amazon and that. And one thing we've noticed as we've traveled around Montana is there's quite a few small towns have small independent bookstores, and doing some reading is like, just why is that? And similarly, we've had this behemoth of a company. They've knocked out a lot of the competition, but in recent years, it's left openings for the small, for the small ones. Still a lot of luck involved, but it's become viable. And I mean, are you seeing that in terms of food?
Well,
food
yeah,
production?
definitely. Because I mean, a lot of these contracts I'm talking about for specialty stuff, a big farm would never want to do. I mean, I've had stuff where it's one semi load, which I mean seems like a lot, but for a farm,
right?
It's like it really wouldn't be worth it for somebody to grow that on a few number of acres and keep it totally separate and treat it totally different. So I think that was the in for me, was being able to do these small little contracts that it's like the big guys don't really care to even bother with.
Organic farming, that's you don't use any chemicals or so what do you use for fertilizer?
So
if anything.
Yeah, predominantly is crop rotation. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. We also have used cover crops in the past. So a nitrogen fixing crop, we'll just plant it and then till it under and use that. The one disadvantage of cover crops, especially these last couple of years, is if it's dry, it does use moisture to do that. The other thing we've used is chicken litter and some composted manure from a feedlot.
Oh, okay.
And that works really great.
Your wife was telling me an interesting story about the chicken manure.
Oh, there's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Well, I need to hear this story. I have not heard this story.
Well, she said that you get a big load of chicken litter
That's right.
from, I don't know.
Fresh.
Chicken litter. And,
Right from under the chickens.
and she said there's a big pile. I was over at your house. And she said, there's a big pile of chicken manure over there. And I said, oh, okay. And she goes, and there's a few dead chickens in it. And I find them because our dog goes into the chicken litter pile and grabs the dead chickens and runs around the yard with
That's
them.
right. And so the other side of that story is, in my defense, so we had to get this. We're getting these loads of chicken litter, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be. Chicken litter is a great fertilizer. So it's just exactly what a wheat crop needs, or cereal grain. So anyway, I'm excited about this, but lo and behold, they decided to deliver it. It's like February or something last year.
Jeez.
And of course, it's just been snowing and it's mucky and muddy. And they're like, where do you want this? And I'm like, oh man, we're going to get stuck in any of the fields I want to put it in. So I'm like, we'll just go outside the shop and just go into the field just a little bit and dump it there. Little did I know, the one spot I chose was like 100 yards upwind of our house.
Oh,
And I didn't even like put two and two together until there's like semi-load after semi-load coming right in front of our yard and just dumping this stuff. And the chicken litter, it's not like, I mean, manure can smell bad, but chicken litter, oh, it's a whole nother level.
Well, your dog enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
She had a really good time.
Lucy
sounds
has
like.
loved the chicken litter,
Yeah.
but not us. Not well. I've loved it, just not the placement so
Yeah.
much.
Well, live and learn, right?
Yep,
Next time.
Yep, I have learned my lesson.
So, do you guys? Can you use? I'm asking this question for somebody
Yeah.
else, so forgive me if I don't pronounce things correctly. Can you use anhydrous ammonia?
Anhydrous ammonia? No, you cannot.
Oh, okay.
You can't use any form of synthetic input.
Oh, okay.
So that's for fertility or for herbicide, pesticide, anything like that.
So if you have your field and your neighbor has a field and they're a conventional farmer and
Yeah.
you're an organic farmer and they spray their wheat and their spray drifts onto your crops,
That's a bad day.
is that a bad day?
That is a bad day.
What happens?
But, well, I guess it depends. You have to have a fun conversation with. So, as an organic farmer, I have to be inspected every year
Yep,
by an
right.
organic inspector. So, I would have to have a fun conversation with my organic inspector as to what I'm going to do. And I'd have to. Basically, what would happen is that whatever got drifted would then be considered conventional agriculture, and I'd have to keep it separate for 3 years till I could transition it back to organic.
Does that happen very often? Or
No, I mean, all of our neighbors have been super great. And actually, I've noticed that when we first moved in and we told our neighbors we were going to be organic, and everyone was really, I mean, everyone's like, oh, was everyone like, what did they think? And I'm-
bunch of hippies.
yeah, everyone was really supportive. They're like, yeah, do I need to do anything? And it was like, so on all of our farms, you have to have some kind of a buffer zone if there's a conventional farm right next door. So we have, and ours is bigger than what it really needs to be to prevent commingling, but we have a 125-foot buffer that's just planted in perennial pollinator habitat. So I mean, it would have to be a really bad situation where there's 125 feet of drift for
Would
it
it
to
have
get
to be
clear.
almost on purpose?
Yes, that would probably
Okay.
be. But no, everybody's been great with
Yeah.
that. And I think, I mean, most even conventional farmers, I would say, because as a farmer that's spraying a chemical, it's like, well, you're paying for every ounce of that chemical that you spray. So I think they try and be very careful on
Right. They want it to go
yeah,
where they want it to go.
having it go where they want it to go, applying at the proper rate, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So,
Okay, cool. So I have another question
all right.
from some fans about automation. With
Ooh.
so your equipment, you have all these different crops. Do you
Yeah.
have different harvesters for each crop?
There is most of the cereal grains you can all harvest the same, just with a regular combine, like you'd see at you pass all those ones at John Deere or whatever. For the lentils, there's a few different things. The pulse crops are a little bit different. You have to have some specialty harvesting equipment. You have to, as an organic producer, I have to swath them and then pick them up, whereas a conventional producer would just desiccate, spray them out,
Right.
and then harvest them. And I do have I've been trying out the tine weeder. So I have one of those. I have a few specialty pieces of equipment, but not really a ton.
When I was reading Lentil Underground, it's a very good book. Everybody go out, get a copy, and read it. They were talking about having to take like some old equipment and sort of make it themselves, make it work for their crops.
Yeah, I know.
Customize it. That's the word I was looking for. Customize it.
We do a little bit different. I guess all of our stuff is pretty much off-the-shelf stuff, but we do a few things that make it easier for us to do organic. For example, our drill, it's on a 6.5 row spacing, so everything's crammed in there a little tighter. And we do have, I don't know, pretty much everything's just the regular old small grain stuff. We do one thing that's been kind of interesting, and that I got to use my engineering degree. So there's this company, well, it's not really a company. There's a group up in Canada that is trying to stick it to the man on GPS software. And it's an open source GPS software that you can just download on a Windows tablet. And so, like, say I were to go to a dealership and buy to get the best GPS, you have to have a subscription. So I'm paying, it might be 10 grand and another $500, $1,000 a year for a subscription. And it's like, you can just go do this yourself, buy all the parts. It's about maybe $300 and have the top of the line GPS. Ooh. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And you get to use the engineering skills.
Yeah, I get to tinker with stuff.
And you get to stick it to the man.
That's right.
We like sticking it to the man. We're all about it here. So with that, do you see a lot of, I know in a lot of the bigger farms and the bigger farm equipment, they're looking at more automation and self-driving and that sort of thing. Do you see a lot of that popping up?
Yeah, definitely. So and that was one thing I kind of promised myself, if I ever make it to Montana, I'm going to buy a GPS that first year. Because, well, the thing is, so say you buy a kind of a cheaper from a dealership GPS, it might cost you $3,000 or something like that, which seems like a lot, just because then I can just chill on the tractor, kick back. Hopefully I'm still watching things.
Listen to audiobooks.
Listen to those audiobooks. Listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. Listen to this podcast.
Yep. But the thing is, when you look at the savings from just even like seed from overlap, it pays for itself pretty quick. So yeah, there's definitely I think even, well, I wouldn't say the really small farms, but most all the farms have some sort of GPS, at least just to drive straight, and then you turn it around manually and drive straight again, just to save on overlap, because it can do it just exactly precisely where it needs to be and save you, a couple $1,000 just on seed. But there's all sorts of cool stuff now. There's like, you can get online and there's satellite imagery that you can get of your farm, and you can look and see, they have a thing called NDVI cameras, which I might be going too deep into this, but
NDVI.
It stands for, what does it stand for? It's like near infrared differential vegetative index or something like that. And so what it does is you take a camera and you look at your fields through this NDVI camera, and it takes the difference of basically the near infrared image versus, I can't remember, like it takes two different wavelengths, and basically what it's looking for is the green wavelength that a plant gives off, representing chlorophyll. So you can look and see how healthy your crop is just from a satellite imagery. This is why people use drones as well. They can map out their crops and have an idea of, well, maybe I'm getting disease pressure on this one side of the field or whatever. And then they have these now where you can even get it down to where you can look at certain diseases or certain deficiencies just based on the different wavelengths of light that the crop's giving off.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when you said infrared, I was picturing like a satellite, like looking at your farm with your house there too, and then like having all these different colors in that, and then having like, the five of you in your house and like little
yeah, we're like all
little
like
globs.
spyware,
Yeah, I never thought about that, but that is kind of creepy that they're just coming around taking photos of me, and
That is creepy.
It's free though. You can look it up.
Yeah. Well, hey, farming can be creepy.
Yeah.
Normalized difference vegetation index.
Oh, there we go.
Just
What
the
was it?
Thank you.
normalized difference vegetation index. So, yeah, just looking at the Wikipedia, it's really interesting, and there's a lot of math, and yeah, just it scales everything between -1 and +1, and you can get a lot of by standardizing against from 0 to 1. You can really make a lot of good not assumptions. Assumptions isn't the right word, but you can draw a lot of interesting conclusions.
Yeah.
But once you've standardized it, and
You guys lost
cool.
me at math.
yeah, I'm having flashbacks to my data mining course.
The real thing that I think farmers need to know about this is a way you can say to maybe your spouse or business partner, I need to buy a $3,000 drone.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds so fun.
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought of that. Maybe I should become a farmer.
That's right.
I have 20 acres.
You might need that drone.
Yeah. Like what could I grow on 20 acres that and I don't think I would get that much pushback from my husband about getting
I think this is a
drone.
pretty safe sell on your part.
Yeah. Oh gosh, now I'm excited.
You can get the drone.
My son got a drone for his birthday.
Okay.
It has a camera attached to it, and he's been he hasn't been flying it lately because it's been snowy and cruddy out and stuff. But he was practicing flying it in the house, and that kid. I'd be sitting like reading, and then all of a sudden I'd have this drone come up and just hover next to my face, and I'm just like, really? This is more fun for you than it is. But he would chase people around,
Yeah.
and I had to finally say no more flying the drone in the house.
We had that at one Christmas. And then it's like the rotating propellers. Like,
Yeah.
I can get these so close and not touch you. Okay, well.
Well, he's a much better drone pilot than I would be. So maybe
Yeah.
we'd have to have him be the pilot for our crop drone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff they have.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff, but it's all like, it comes with a price tag for sure.
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Anything else you want to tell us about?
I was just going to say, I guess my concluding thought would be, we can chat as long as you guys want, but I guess the one thing that I've kind of learned being up here, doing some of the homesteading stuff, and you get to experience kind of more where your food comes from. And there's things, I remember growing up and my mom would grow these garden tomatoes, and it would just be so different than a tomato you'd buy from the store. It's like there's so much flavor when you cut into it, and then you go back to the store-bought tomato and it's just like spongy and not as flavorful. And I kind of realized all food is like that. I'm realizing more and more, I don't know, some of the stuff I'm like, I don't know if I've ever eaten food.
Well, and speaking of tomatoes, Michael and I, we came across an interesting thing with our tomatoes. We've been buying some canned tomatoes because it's winter. That's when you cook all the stews, all the nice, heavy, long and slow kind of cooking. And a really easy, really good pasta sauce. It was made famous by Marcella Hazan, and it uses a can of San Marzano style tomatoes, butter, salt, and an onion. That's it. Well, the really good San Marzano tomatoes now, they have a website, a link on the back of the can. And granted, anybody who does food manufacturing, they have to do this anyway. It's part of track and trace where, in case of a recall, you need to know where it exactly came from. I had to do it when I was in food manufacturing. We did it on paper. Well, you're doing it anyway. They have theirs online, and they have this cool thing. Where did my tomatoes come from? Plug the lot code into the website, and you pull it up, and it pulls up the satellite imagery of the little field in Romagna, and we could see where our tomatoes that went in our dinner came from. So yeah, it's very cool. Anytime, that's my kind of nerdery right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I've just realized it's kind of like that with everything. I've eaten from our chickens like a free range chicken egg, and it's like, whoa, I never realized this is how eggs are.
Yeah, they're so much better. We have chickens,
Yeah.
and our chickens haven't been laying for a while. We need to have a talk with them.
Yeah.
I say I've had
chilly.
eggs that I bought from your kids, and they grow excellent eggs.
Yeah. And I think that's what we don't realize as consumers is that I think we can tend to get so detached from our food that we forget what is an egg, what is a tomato, or what is wheat. I mean, when we can grind it up right there that morning and make it into bread or pancakes, it's a totally different thing than just going to the store and buying the Wonder Bread off the shelf.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing is we just need to get back to growing our own food, to supporting people who grow it here locally and learning about where it comes from.
Right. And especially with, a lot of people talking about like the prices of groceries going up and all that. It really helps if you can, even just like a planter of tomatoes or, a windowsill garden can really make a lot of difference.
Yeah.
In the grocery bill and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, and hit up those farmers markets. We've got, I think Purple Shelf Farm just opened up a store right here in town. Shout out to them. And there's places you can get stuff online from just people who grow food here in Montana.
Do you do a direct-to-consumer sort of thing, or?
We do not. We did a little bit. So I can sell you stuff, but I just can't guarantee it's not full of grasshoppers and stuff is the problem.
The high protein.
Yeah, it is. It's high protein. Yeah, we did. We actually had seed. So the issue with lentils and small grains is you have to clean them first. And we actually had a cleaner set up. And then I have this whole ambition up here of setting up this big cleaner in one of our shops. I have everything. I was almost ready to go last year. I had the electrician come out and be like, hey, I need to get some new breakers in here. And he's like, the wire going to the shop is not a big enough diameter to actually power all the stuff that I have in there.
No.
So we still have some work to be done, but yeah, that is our goal in the future is to have that cleaner set up so we can get things cleaned. We'll have stuff cleaned, just that then we're going to like seed or something and we'll throw some in buckets and stuff. But yeah, we don't do a lot of direct to consumer stuff at this point, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, that'd be
pretty fantastic.
That'd be dope.
Right, shut up and take my money.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, my wife keeps telling me, we got to get that all ready to go, but I keep dragging my feet on it. Well, what it is because it turned out to be harder than what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That happens to us all.
Yep.
Podcast turned out to be harder than I thought it would be, but
Very true.
here we are. We're
Yep.
doing it.
We're rolling.
So, well, thank you very much, Michael,
Yes,
for
thank
coming
you.
in and talking
Yeah.
with us.
You can find us on Facebook at 406411 podcast. You can send us an email at 406411podcast@gmail.com. And on Spotify. I always forget Spotify. And we're on YouTube too.
Yep, Spotify, YouTube, and Gmail. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button and drop us a comment. It really helps with the algorithm and gets more ears listening to us. So if you don't know what to say, just put a wheat. Did they have a wheat emoji?
I really don't know.
Okay, well, some sort of
Agricultural based thing.
yes.
If you have an opinion about food,
Yeah.
post it.
Yeah, send me
Yes.
a recipe. I like good food.
Absolutely. So, again, thank you very much. I hope you'll
Yeah.
come back in the future.
I'd love to.
Yeah, one day.
Yay. All right.
All right. Well, be good and be nice.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Yeah, fine.